Shaw is CMD at Biocon. She is joining us from Bangalore. Biocon reported third quarter numbers. The stock is off a little bit, but it's done phenomenally well over the last year and a half or so. Ma'am, thanks very much. Good morning. Prashant here. Thanks for being first here on NDTV. Ma'am, sales missed analyst expectations a little bit, and primarily the reason seems to be the biopharmaceutical segment, which has slowed a little bit. Can you start by talking about what happened there and what's the outlook?
Yeah, so I think, you have to look at this in context with expectations based on Q2 numbers, where the biopharma sales were boosted because of certain global tenders that we won that quarter. And obviously, this quarter has not reflected any tenders in our, tender wins in our business. So it is slightly muted, and I guess the expectations were based on the surge in numbers in Q2, which were largely attributable to these tenders. However, I do want to say that Q4 numbers will look good because we have a very strong order book. It does include a few tenders. So I think overall, I think you have to look at it at the year end, at the year end, and I'm sure we will, make sure that we deliver a good set of numbers.
Contract research continues to show very good growth, ma'am, right? 30% year on year.
Absolutely. I think our research services business has had a stellar performance this fiscal, continues to grow very, very strongly, and I think we're clearly seeing that Syngene is really outpacing its competitors both in India and is slowly catching up with its competitors in Asia. So I think we certainly see Syngene continuing to drive growth because of the kind of differentiated offerings that has allowed it to position itself as a very strong leader.
Yeah. Ma'am, margins came in higher than expectations. I think EBITDA margins are at 24.2%. Second quarter, they were about 23% or so. But R&D spend was down in this particular quarter.
Yes.
So I'm just referring to that. How sustainable is that, lower R&D spends?
So, well, it's not. Lower R&D spends is neither sustainable nor desirable. I would say that this, particular quarter has seen a dip in R&D spends for a number of reasons. I think one attributable reason is the moratorium on clinical trials in India, which has had to defer and delay and even take some of our clinical trials overseas. So those spends have not come into being this quarter, which were anticipated. Secondly, of course, our global trials have introduced spends over time based on site initiations, which is really what has been reflected in the first two quarters. And this quarter is considered to be sort of a holiday time, so we have not sort of seen those spends kicking in terms of new site initiations. So a multiple number of factors, but largely attributable to the Indian clinical trial environment, which is what has muted our R&D spends this quarter, but they are likely to pick up, in the quarters ahead.
Right. But for fiscal 14, what you spend on R&D would be significantly lower than lower compared to the same period the previous year, and also significantly lower than what you've been guiding for, right?
Up to the first 9 months, we are not. I mean, we are slightly down on what we did last fiscal, but I don't think it is going to be, at least from what we can see, it is not going to be hugely significantly different from what we did last year.
Okay. There is a lot else happening at Biocon, ma'am. I mean, you've entered into a licensing arrangement with Advaxis to commercialize a novel HPV vaccine and other emerging markets. Can you just sort of run us through a couple of other of these things which are underway at Biocon?
Yeah, as you know, we are very committed to expanding our research pipeline, and it's extremely important for us to keep focused on doing this. And I think these two partnerships that we've entered into recently, one with Advaxis and the other with Quark, are certainly game changers. Co-op is, a technology based on siRNA or short interfering RNA technology, which is becoming a very hotly pursued area in terms of new drugs. And in the case of Advaxis, we are actually looking at a very novel HPV vaccine where the clinical trial data that is available thus far is very, very interesting, very encouraging, and we are very confident that we can take this to the Indian market and it can become a very, very big product.
Fair enough, ma'am. Thanks very much for joining in. Good to talk to you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Kiran Mazumdar, short Biocon with take on the third quarter and of course looking ahead as well. There's 464 in the stock, 15 rupees lower. Let's take that quick break.